الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. This is the final case before we move on to the next section to do with Nikah. This is an interesting one, and it's a conversation around marriage and divorce. Is something that didn't exist. Something happened. The man made an offer and the woman accepted, for example. Or it can also be that the qadi has the power, the judge has the power to bring it in existence or to end the marriage contract. Okay, but you need the qadi, you need the judge. We call this the qadi, and this creates a lot of interesting conversations which I won't go into today. But the whole of fiqh is tied to this idea of sovereignty, Muslims being in power, having a qadi, having an imam. I've talked about this in other places, in other videos. And because many of us live in non-Muslim lands, or we live as minorities, this creates interesting situations because, of course, living in Britain, for example, you don't have a qadi, and the qadi cannot enforce anything unless you go to, obviously, a normal court. And there are obviously Sharia, what we call Sharia courts, but they're more kind of better described as marriage courts, or arbitration panels, marriage courts, where people try and resolve some of these tricky issues. So this is something that vexes a lot of fuqaha, a lot of muftis, because they have to answer a lot of questions on this topic. But I'm not going to go into too much detail because it's not what I want to do. I just want to get a theory out, inshallah ta'ala. So once you understand that theory, this particular masala, it's a bit long, but it becomes clearer, insha'Allah ta'ala. So, وَمَنِ دَعَتْ عَلَيْهِ إِمْرَأَةٌ أَنَّهُ تَزَوَّجَهَا. That is someone, a woman in this case, she makes a claim that a man had married her. عَلَيْهِ إِمْرَأَةٌ. So somebody comes to a man and a woman comes and says, this person had married me. تَزَوَّجَهَا. That he had married her. وَأَقَامَتْ بَيِّنَةً. And then she proves it. فَجَعَلَهَا الْقَاضِي إِمْرَأَتَهُ. And the qadi says, okay, she's your wife. But وَلَمْ يَكُنْ تَزَوَّجَهَا. The hal here, the truth of the matter is that he didn't actually marry her. But she's proved it. She's proved that he's married her. وَسِعَ الْمَقَامُ مَعَهُ. Then she will essentially she'll be with him. And وَأَنْ تَدَعُهُ يُجَامِعُهَا. And he can have intercourse with her. Now this is according to Imam Abu Hanifah rahimahullah ta'ala. And it says, وَهَذَا قَوْلُ Abu Yusuf. And this is a qawl of Abu Yusuf rahimahullah ta'ala as well. First, in other words, this is something that he held before. وَفِي قَوْلِهِ الْآخَرِ وَهُوَ قَوْلُ مُحَمَّدٍ لَا يَسْوَيَّتَهَا. But later on, it's mentioned here that Imam Abu Yusuf took a different position. Imam Muhammad, either Sahibain, the two students, they said no, he cannot, he's not in a place or in a position to have intercourse with her. This is the discussion so far. And Imam Shafi'i, I'll just mention him here, وَهُوَ قَوْلُ الشَّافِعِي. And this is also the position of Imam Shafi'i. So you have Imam Abu Hanifa on one side, and at least Imam Abu Yusuf and Imam Muhammad on the other side, if you like, and Imam Shafi'i with them as well on that side, that they're not married, essentially, they're not together. Whereas Imam Abu Hanifa says, well, if you establish all the proof, then it's done. Now this comes down to an important conversation, which I'm just going to bring in now, so the rest of the text will become easier for us. What we have is that the qadi, what he does is, when he gives a hukm in this particular case, is zahiran and batinan. Batinan and zahiran. Okay, so there's two things that happens when he gives a hukm here. Right, zahiran and batin. I haven't written really well. Let me try and write it again for you, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, so let's try again. So when a qadi says, he gives his hukm, is zahiran and wa batinan. What does this mean? Zahiran means in this world. In this world, they're married. And with Allah, they are also married. Okay, in this particular arrangement. Now, why is this? Well, the fuqaha have an idea here that there's a theory that's not mentioned here, but it comes in Jami' al-Saghir, and this is taken from the Jami' al-Saghir, this particular mas'ala, that there's two types of ownership, imlak. there's two types of ownership. One is what we call muqayyada, which means there's only one way that you know that that thing came into ownership. And there's mursala, which is various ways something comes into your ownership, right? So you might have inherited the item. So you have like a book, right? You own a really expensive book, right? You might have inherited it, you might have bought it, many ways. But when it comes to marriage between a man and a woman, right, there's only really one way. And because of that, it's muqayyada. And when it's muqayyada, the hukum that the qadi gives is zahiran and batinan. When it's mursala, it's only in the dunya. Yeah. So there's a epistemological difference, because here there's a greater level of certainty, because there's less ambiguity. Remember, Hanafis love this stuff about truth. So this is understood as a muqayyad for Imam Abu Hanifa rahimahullahu ta'ala. That's the whole discussion here, because there's only one way that she would be a wife, that's through nikah. Okay, so let's move on. So Imam Shafi'i and the ulama that agree with him say لأن القاضي أخطأ الحجة. The qadi has made a mistake because the witnesses are lying. كذبة, all of them, they're lying. And then they use an analogy. They say when they're lying, it's like كما إذا ظهر أنهم عبيد كفار. Just like if it became clear that, when you had a marriage contract and the people that witnessed it were slaves or disbelievers, if you find out, it invalidates the contract. So this is the qiyas that they're using. The contract is invalidated. But Imam Abu Hanifa says, وَلِأَبِي حَنِيفَةَ أَنَّ الشُّهُودَ الصَّدَقَةٌ عِنْدَهُ, that's the witnesses are speaking the truth according to the qadi عِنْدَهُ وَهُوَ الْحُجَّةُ, and that's enough, right? Because you can't really find out لِتَعَذُرُ الْوُقُوفَ عَلَى حَقِيقَةِ الصِّدْقِ. How are you going to find out what's really going on? And then he needs to respond to this objection here. He said, well, as opposed to a slave person or non-believer witnessing a marriage, well, you can quite easily work out that this person is a slave. You can quite easily work out that this person is a disbeliever. But you can't work out if someone's lying or not, right? وَإِذَا ابْتُلِيَ الْقَضَاءُ وَالْحُجَّةُ, and the qadi needs to do what's established before him. And he will, وَأَمْكَنَ تَنْفِيذُهُ بَاطِنًا بِالتَّقْلِي nikah, and this is why I talked about before, that he will give the hukam batinan, because this is a muqayyada, this is imlak muqayyada. And we need to have some sort of resolution. You can't have this ambiguity in it. So what the qadi says, it's done. As opposed to imlak mursala, so this is the ishara here, that we're not talking about imlak mursala, we're talking about muqayyada here. Okay, لأن في الأسباب تزاحم فلا إمكان, because there's many asbab that thing might have come into your ownership as opposed to nikah. Wallahu alam, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. So this is really the debate that's going on. And this, like I said, is a mas'ala from Jami' al-Saghir. It's very simple, it looks very complicated. And the asal is all that I've said, which is that أن القضاء في العقود والفسوق بشهادة الزور ينفذ ظاهرا وباطنا عند أبي حنيفة. That according to Imam Abu Hanifa, that the judge, when he gives a ruling in uqud, in contracts or breaking of contracts, if it's even done with false witnesses, right, it will be done zahiran and batinan, according to Abu Hanifa. And this was a first view of Abu Yusuf as well. According to the later view and Imam Abu Yusuf Muhammad later on, it's only done zahiran and not batinan. So in the world they're married, but in the law they're not done. And what is this murad min al-nifas zahiran? Like I mentioned, that an yathbut al-hukmu fi ma baynana, that they are married, ownership, nafaqa, spending, all these ahkam will then apply. Okay, so this is how they understand it. This is how Abu Hanifa rahimahullah ta'ala understand it. Very easy. I'd love to hear your thoughts and questions that you might have. Inshallah, alhamdulillah, we're going to move on to next section in next video. Bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.